gene drives editing entire species. So you might have heard that, the last week or so, Nobel Prize was won for CRISPR. And gene drives is an extreme, not an extreme, but it's a special case of CRISPR that can edit entire species, not just one or two individuals at a time. So how does it work? And what are some of the implications? I mean, obviously the implications are mind-blowing and very serious. So CRISPR allows gene editing. Like you might have heard the famous, not even sure what word to use, but idea of designer babies, that we could edit the genes to create basically what we want. Now, obviously, there's all kinds of not only consequences, but second-order consequences, unintended consequences, because we don't know how genes play out in the future. We don't know how they're related to each other, beyond the few interactions that we understand. And so it's very tricky, to say the least. Now, in the laboratory, if you do CRISPR, you only influence fundamentally the individuals that you work on, and when they mate, it gets diluted. So if you mate like two flies that have CRISPR edited genes, or one fly with another fly, I'm not a geneticist, so I don't know all the particulars, but I do understand from what I've heard that on a different podcast that it gets diluted over time. So some of the offspring are going to have the CRISPR gene editing and some won't. So it has an effect, but it's diluted. Now, what happens in the case of gene drives is that CRISPR gene editing is reinforced in a way through DNA code, such that it becomes dominant in all mating. So when you make the change, when there's a mating, instead of it becoming diluted, it gets passed on to every successive generation. Now, this raises all kinds of enhanced questions and consequences, because what if it's done maliciously? What if people create superorganisms that are like weapons, like bioweapons? Now we have to worry about nuclear weapons. We have to worry about bioterrorism. This would be like an extreme case of bioterrorism on steroids. Another thing is just the unintended consequences. Another thing is, which is huge and podcast into itself. Another aspect is natural selection. Like in a species, genes are continued or replaced based upon how selective they are. But this gene drive would supersede natural selection. Even if a gene should be replaced by natural selection, it won't be replaced if it unless all the offspring are killed before they have a chance to mate. It won't be replaced because it's DNA coded to continue. In terms of unintended consequences also, how is it going to affect, future generations of that species? How is it going to interact with other species? How is it going to interact with the environment? The list of questions that you could do. So on a practical level, but also on a moral level, on a spiritual level, social level, there's all kinds of questions about this. What if it was applied to humans? What would happen then? So things to think about.